California reimposed a mask mandate in indoor public spaces.
You give these people an inch, they will never let go.
It is a fake score about a bill that doesn't exist.
California is planning a new gun control law.
California instituted a new statewide mask mandate because it worked so well the first time. They're also trying to ban guns. And also, President Joe Biden's Build Back Venezuela plan has a CBO score that doesn't look great. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
From a dingy bunker completely cut off from the outside world except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. Today is December 14th, the year of our Lord 2021, and this is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. We've got a really interesting one for you today. Corruptifornia, as my shirt so aptly says, has a new statewide mask mandate, which nobody is going to follow, at least that I know of in the area of California that I live in. Yes, I do live behind enemy lines in California, and they've instituted a mask mandate because, you know how super well that worked. COVID was it didn't affect anybody's life whatsoever because the mask mandate the first time 2 years ago totally worked. But that coming up, also California has a new way to try and ban guns in the hands of Californians. And I know you're watching from all around the country, all around the world, maybe. We have a global show with expats listening overseas. But I know we have a national show, but you need to know what's going on in California because it's coming to where you are. They're also trying to ban guns there. And also Joe Biden's Build Back Venezuela plan, get this, is going to cost more than they say it is. Almost double, actually, probably more than that. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. First, I got to get to this. This California reinstitutes a statewide mask mandate. This is coming from Governor Gavin Newsom of California yesterday. Again, I'm wearing my Corruptifornia t-shirt today because that is exactly what California is. If you give a mouse a cookie, they never will. They're going to want some milk. And if you give them some milk, they're going to want whatever that childhood story goes. If you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. That seems to be the case in California. California is instituting a mask mandate, but just for 1 month. They said for 1 month. Remember the whole 2 weeks to slow the curve? What is it? Day 780 of 14 days to slow the curve. But California is issuing a month-long mask mandate starting tomorrow. This is what I think is hilarious about these. Governor Gavin Newsom talked about this yesterday. This is so important. We have to do it tomorrow. I'm not going to do it today. We're gonna do it in a couple days. But it's super important, and we have to do it. But not right now. We'll wait a couple days, and then we're going to do it because it's super important. Alex Michelson is a reporter for the anchor of California's local news station in Southern California. He asked the governor and the, HHS secretary of the state of California, how are you going to enforce this? The answer is there won't be any specific penalties. They're asking for compliance to help save lives. Again, didn't work the first time and probably won't work this time. But here's the thing. In California, depending on where you live, a lot of people watching from around the country are thinking California is full of a bunch of lunatics. And it is. But generally speaking, they're pretty pocketed in their high-density urban areas. Los Angeles County, San Francisco County, all of those areas, your San Jose area, the Bay Area, those types of areas are super, super dense with people that never took the masks off. They're looking at this mask mandate and saying, well, yeah, this is, of course we would do this. We never took our masks off. But the rest of us in the wider spread of California, if you look at California from a map, it's interestingly enough, you got some small pockets of super, super dense blue, and then it's red pretty much everywhere else. You go further north to California, it is red country. You go to the east, the Central Valley, it's all red down there, all the way down to the south of California. But you got these small pockets of California that has a huge population that really controls the narrative of the entire state. So they never took their masks off. I do not live in any of those super blue parts of California, and I think we stopped wearing masks like a year ago, probably more than that. And nobody is going to listen to this, which I think is part of the bigger problem. If the government wants to maintain control by issuing mandates and laws and whatever it is that they're supposed to do, because remember, the government does have a role in your everyday life, but if they continue to issue rules and laws that nobody's going to follow and nobody enforces, that hurts the actual laws. Let me say that again. If you institute rules and laws that you can't or don't enforce, that hurts the viability of other laws that actually matter. When Gavin Newsom says, oh, we're issuing a statewide mask mandate, somebody looks at that, especially in the area where I live, and go, we can act all up in arms and enraged about it, but the reality is I think a lot of people reacted how I did yesterday. I saw the update on my phone. I looked at it and I looked at the update on my phone and went, that's interesting. That's not going to affect my life at all, but that is interesting. And I don't think any of the businesses, any of even the big corporations in the area where I live in California are going to do anything regarding the mask mandate. So when you have rules that you don't enforce and can't enforce because they literally can't enforce this, and they have no plan to enforce it, according to the Health and Human Services Secretary of the state of California, there's no plan. There's no plan to force compliance. So when you have laws that aren't enforced and rules that nobody prosecutes for, that weakens the real laws that you have. If somebody looks at one law and says, well, they're not enforcing this, why would I follow this other law? And obviously that doesn't apply to the big, massive crimes like murder or assault or anything like that. But your everyday laws just start to break down when there's people looking at mandates and rules and all that sort of stuff that aren't being enforced. So the little things like running red lights on the street or small petty theft or I don't know, parking in handicap spots. When you don't enforce all of the laws, you're going to get people breaking more laws. Again, in things that actually matter. If you remember, New York City in the late 90s had a huge crime problem. Then Rudy Giuliani came in and issued this stance called no broken windows. He issued no broken windows, which meant that the cops were going to investigate every small minor crime. And what did that do? The No Broken Windows Act was basically designed so that cops didn't let anything go. Not only, now, some people may think that's a little authoritarian, but at the same time, New York crime was through the roof. The No Broken Windows had a massive effect and decreased crime in New York City substantially because all of the little things were taken care of. In California, they're doing the exact opposite. They're instituting rules and mandates that are the little things that nobody's going to pay attention to, which is going to increase to bigger things. And obviously, we've seen crime through the roof in California the last couple weeks with the brazen robberies and the mob robberies in different stores. So again, I sound like a broken record. If you institute rules that you can't and don't and won't enforce, that hurts real rules that should be enforced in the lawless state of California. Obviously, the Prop 47 issue, again, not to get super California specific. But I did like what Governor Ron DeSantis said on Laura Ingram's show yesterday. Check this out. Listen to this.
Now, Governor, really quickly on this issue of mask mandates. I know you've rejected them across the board. What's your reaction tonight to both Newsom in California and Hochul in New York going back to mask mandates with this Omicron, which seems to be, thankfully, so far, a mild virus?
Well, what are we on, like day 700 of the 15 days to slow the spread? The fact of the matter is, I think we've learned, you give these people an inch, they will never let go. They are going to take a mile. They are going to restrict. They're going to mandate. They're going to lock you down. And we cannot accept that. Obviously, in Florida, we do not accept it. So there's no reason to be restricting or mandating anybody throughout our country. And the fact that this is still going on in these blue states and may even intensify over the coming weeks and months, it just shows you, if you value your freedom in 2022, if you're in those states, you need to make your voice heard, and you got to do a change of direction, because I fear that they're going to continue to do this until they suffer at the ballot box. Mandates and restrictions have not been effective, but they've been very costly, and I think the proof is in the pudding. You have people that want to come to Florida to vacation and buy homes. You don't have the opposite, where people are leaving free states to try to go to New York or some of these other places.
Good point that he makes at the end. I don't see anybody moving from Texas or Florida to California or New York. Just the opposite. The only thing you see is people fleeing these super blue states that have been locked down for the better part of 2 years, going to states that haven't and won't institute statewide mask mandates. But speaking of California, and again, I understand that this is a national show, and I understand that people watch from all over the place, but you need to see, I personally believe in the laboratories of democracy, in that all of the different states get to do really whatever the states want to do, and the other states surrounding those states, or at least in the same union of those states, can go, oh, that was a good idea, or yeah, we're not going to do that. So I think you need to see this. California is trying to issue a gun ban. Now, this is actually pretty interesting, and maybe we may have a little bit of a disagreement here. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you haven't already, click the little like button down here or hit the share button over there. Really helps us out, to get to a broader audience. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. So appreciate any shares, likes, comments, anything that you guys think in the comment section. I read through these as much as I can during the show, but sometimes a little bit difficult to do the same thing. So I want to get to this. California is looking to ban, quote unquote, assault style weapons. Now, nobody really knows what that means, but Governor Gavin Newsom took a step towards it 2 days ago. I believe on Saturday issued a statement saying that he's going to start rolling out a legislation that is trying to ban, quote unquote, assault weapons in the state of California. Now, the reason why I think maybe we might come to a little bit of a disagreement, because this is on the back of the Texas abortion law. Texas passed a law that is seemingly controversial regarding the abortion side, that you can't get an abortion after about 6 weeks. It's the heartbeat law. People keep saying that 6 weeks is a line in the sand, but no, it's not. It is a estimation of when you can detect a heartbeat in a child. So there's that. Now, this is not at all regarding abortion. I have my own personal feelings. I'm sure you do too. Here's the thing. The Texas law is admittedly weird. Again, disclaimer. This is not a pro-abortion stance. This is the way the Texas law is set up is odd. Admittedly, it's weird. What it does is the federal government has an over umbrella of how states operate. So in Texas, they can't say the state is going to punish people for getting abortions after their rules. If, though, they set up rules and allow not the state to prosecute, but citizens themselves to sue, then the federal government has less jurisdiction because it's not being done by the states. Do you see how that works? And also, you see how that might be kind of problematic. Again, this is not an abortion stance. This is a way the Texas law was set up. It's admittedly weird. In California, we have a similar thing. ADA, so handicapped, wheelchair-bound people who have ADA requirements, the state of California allows attorneys to not not press charges from the state level, but allows attorneys to sue businesses and residential areas that don't comply with ADA law, meaning that not the state isn't the one prosecuting, it's the attorneys themselves, and people are getting rich off of that. That was it's a bad way to enforce rules, and it's a bad way to enforce laws. Then it's also probably, admittedly, a bad way to do laws in Texas, regardless of what you think about actual abortion law. The reason being is because now, on the piggyback of the Supreme Court saying, yeah, the Texas law is fine, but abortion clinics can now sue the state and all that sort of stuff to try and get that rule overturned. On the back of the Texas abortion law, Gavin Newsom now came out and said, well, I'm going to institute my own gun policy, and people, not the state, are going to be able to sue each other, and therefore the federal government won't do anything about it. And that is a dangerous place to be. And even liberals would agree with that, especially I'll read an opinion piece from Mercury talking about how these laws work. And I'm telling you, this is not a good way to start structuring society. Again, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here. This is not an abortion stance on the Texas abortion law. This is how the law was structured that I have some real concerns with. On June 4th of this year, a 3-judge panel issued a stay on the June 4th order of U.S. District Judge Robert Benitez of Southern California District, in which the judge ruled that sections of the state ban put in place in 1989 regarding military rifles are unconstitutional. So, in California in 1989, they banned military-style assault weapons. Whatever the heck that means. Nobody has they don't have a really clear definition of what that is. But California banned, quote unquote, military assault style weapons. That was in place for the last, 30 years? Almost 32 years. In June, a federal judge said that, no, you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. So that ban on quote unquote military assault weapons was revoked by the federal courts because the state was the one enforcing it. Now, Governor King Gavin Newsom is saying, well, if Texas can do this with abortions, I'm going to do it with guns. And now he's working on legislation that would effectively ban those same weapons, but not be enforceable by the state and instead by citizens. Citizens of California would be able to sue manufacturers that are selling or distributing these quote unquote military assault style weapons under California law. And because it's not being enforced by the state, he thinks that given the Supreme Court's stay on the Texas abortion law, he thinks that he can get around that by having citizens sue each other rather than the state prosecute his unconstitutional law according to federal courts. You see how this becomes a problem? And I know this is kind of a long-winded explanation of how this stuff works. But again, the Texas abortion law, I said this months ago when it came into a place, regardless of what you think about abortions, I have my personal beliefs, you have your personal beliefs. But regardless of those personal beliefs, the way the law is structured is weird and probably dangerous for the way we operate and structure society. But Mercury News, not a conservative news outlet, had this to say about King Gavin Newsom's attempt to get rid of guns. It's all too typical for the governor, who seldom misses an opportunity to tweak his political foes on social issues. But his misguided approach gives credibility to a dangerous enforcement tactic, vigilante justice. That's what I think. Again, regardless of what you think about the actual social issue, the way that we're enforcing these quote unquote laws, citizen to citizen, is weird. And I don't think it sets a good precedent for the way we do business in the United States of America. A Berkeley Law School dean and constitutional expert said that he believes the Supreme Court's stay on the Texas abortion law has opened a dangerous door by allowing citizens to enforce questionable laws. Again, there's no appeal, or at least at this point, there's no good appeal to a higher court if citizens are doing the enforcement. What does that lead to? Vigilante justice, in their words. So that's what's going on there, and it's weird, and it's lengthy, and it's hard to dissect, and it's kind of hard to understand as a whole. But I felt like you needed to know what's going on here because, like I've said, I don't know, 15 times already. It's not about the actual issue of abortion. It's about how the law is structured. It's tough for me to cheer on the Texas abortion rules because of how they're enforced and the dangers that I see it going to other places, such as California, who's trying to do the very same thing around guns. And I think citizens suing gun manufacturers, distributors, or anybody selling guns is a massive problem. And it's not going to be pretty in the state of California if it were able to go through. Let me see if there's any comments that we can get to. I know this is a little bit. Oh, here we go. Heather says another division tactic always on the agenda. Yeah, I would agree with that. Elvin Price says, and this is interesting. This is, again, Elvin, this is no disagreement here. The Second Amendment is enshrined in the Constitution, and the right to life is enshrined in the Constitution. Correct. You're no arguments here. The concern I have is the way it's being enforced really worries me. The Texas law was designed to get around the federal oversight of state governments. Does that make sense? That's the thing I have a problem with. The Texas law was designed to get around the federal oversight of state law. And that is what Gavin Newsom is now trying to do regarding guns. And if this all stands, I would imagine a bunch of other states are going to do the same thing on super, super controversial, quote unquote, laws. That's enough of that. I'm jabbering on and on and on. Let's go, Brandon, says Richard. Appreciate it. I want to get to this. This is kind of this is a not sexy topic at all, but people need to hear about it. The CBO released a score, a quote unquote real score for the Build Back Venezuela Joe Biden administration plan. If you aren't following this, good for you, by the way. I think you should be because it actually matters to everyday Americans. But at the same time, do what you want with your life. You don't have to pay second to second attention to the news. But the Build Back Venezuela law, get this, is going to cost a lot more than they originally said. You don't say. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, released a new report at the request of some Republican senators. We won't leave that out because we're trying to be fair here. At the request of some Republican senators, the CBO released a new report that doesn't sunset the policies instituted for the Build Back Venezuela plan. What that means is that in Joe Biden's Build Back Venezuela plan, some of these policies have an end date. Now, if you can, find me a temporary government program and I will give you I don't know, all of the credit in the world, because everybody knows that once a government program is instituted, it never goes away. I don't know if it was Mark Twain or Winston Churchill or somebody said that there's nothing more permanent. Oh shoot, it's coming to me. I'll think of the name. There's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. Shoot, that's gonna bug me. If you know who said that, let me know in the comments. I have it on the tip of my tongue. Journalist from the 1940s. Really love the guy, and for some reason the name is flitting out of my head. But yeah, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. And therefore, the Republicans in the Senate wanted the CBO to score the Build Back Venezuela plan based on the idea that none of these programs are going away. So when you do that, it doesn't cost $1.87 trillion. No, it's closer to $5 trillion and adding $300 million to the nation's already crippling deficit. Government programs don't go away. Let me read this. The Build Back Better program extended through the 10-year window. Instead of having their costs hidden with arbitrary expiration dates, it would cost nearly $3 trillion more than the advertised total price tag of the $5 trillion. That's roughly 3 times the figure that the media has been sharing. Lo and behold, the media is lying to you. Wow, that's weird. The media has been sharing a far lower number. The previous scoring the CBO only accounted for legislation as it's written, which sunsets programs issued by the Build Back Venezuela issue. For example, Democrats say it will only cost the child tax allowance, Democrats say it will only cost $185 billion because it ends after 1 year. The tax credit, it ends after 1 year, so it's not going to cost nearly as much. But again, when does a government program ever actually end? The answer is never. They never end. They literally do not end. There's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. But given the fact no one believes that they would end in the next year or in later years. The CBO says the real cost over 10 years is not $185 billion. No, it's $1.5 trillion because government programs never end. Democrats also pegged their income-earning child expansion at a cost of $13 billion because it also ends after 1 year. But the CBO says the real cost of the $135 billion over 10 years it'll actually cost 10 times more, $135 billion over the course of 10 years. Again, because government programs do not end. It's bugging me so much that I can't think of this guy's name who says the temporary, Mencken. It's going to come to me. I know this doesn't matter to you, but it's really irritating me inside. But that's the true cost of the Build Back Venezuela program. The CBO is again scoring this, saying that if you don't sunset these programs, if you don't end the program, which there's no precedent that the government is ever going to end any of these programs, the CBO says, if you don't end these programs, it's actually going to cost almost 3 times what you're telling us it's going to cost. Jen Psaki said this, H.L. Mencken. That's who said it. I'm pretty sure. Somebody fact check me on that. H.L. Mencken, I think, said there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I could be. But the Build Back Venezuela program, Jen Psaki was asked about the new CBO score, and this is what she said. It's kind of funny. Listen to this.
It's important to understand that when anybody raises a question about this new CBO score, it is a fake score about a bill that doesn't exist, and we should really focus on the actual bill everybody's going to vote on and considering in Congress.
So here's the thing. If it actually does pass, which I'm praying to God it doesn't, Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, all of your more, John Tester in Montana, please don't let this thing pass. But if it did, we all have the responsibility to hold the administration, current and future, to what they're saying. Because Jen Psaki here is saying, well, the bill as written won't change. We won't extend any of these programs at all. That's effectively what she's saying. We won't extend any of these programs. No, not us. Absolutely not. But we all know government programs never actually end. So if it were to pass, it's up to all of us to hold the government to its word and only spend the money that's written in the bill. Because Jen Psaki says, no, we're trying to focus on the bill as it's written, not this fanciful new rule that this unending government programs. That never happens, Jen Psaki is effectively saying. But of course it does and will continue to as long as the United States government continues to expand, which is a whole other issue in and of itself. Let me see. What did I promise? Was it Milton Friedman? Somebody said, Linda says Milton Friedman. You might be right. I let you know in the comments, Milton, but you don't check your comments. Al said Milton Friedman in the comments. All right, I was wrong. All right, thanks, Al. Thanks, Linda. It is Milton Friedman that said there's nothing more. Milton Friedman said there is nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. dang it, I felt good about that. I felt good that I remembered H.L. Mencken's name. Ken, I see the comment. Build back Venezuela. No, that's not what this is. This is the Chiron here. Here is a play on words. It's the build. Joe Biden has the Build Back Better plan. No, what it'll really do is build us back more like Venezuela. So we're not building back Venezuela. I'm sorry if that confused you, but that's what I jokingly call this Build Back Better plan. It's the Build Back Venezuela plan. Didn't know I had to explain that. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate everybody sticking around. I know you've got a lot of places to get your news and all that sort of stuff, and I appreciate you sticking around for my witty and hilarious commentary. But that's going to do it for us today. It's pouring here in California outside the office. Like, geez, a lot of rain. So we need it. It's the age-old saying of dads everywhere. But that's going to do it for us today. I'm going to go brave the rain back to my car, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. If you haven't already, go check out all the other shows on the Daily Caller platform. Save the Nation is great. Brianna Lyman has great content. David Hookstead show. If you like sports, go check that out. But great stuff over on all the Daily Caller platforms. We will see you right back here tomorrow. Same time, same place. God bless America.